Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
Welcome to Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan. I'm Susan.
And I'm Lisa. Welcome.
Today we're going to be talking about gardening. And we've talked about a lot of alternative types of things, alternative lifestyles, for example, simple living, going green, alternative fuels.
Living frugally.
Living frugally.
The new normal.
And so we thought one thing we really haven't touched on is gardening. And gardening is a huge trend.
Yes.
And, why not? It's all about feeding yourself well, supporting local farmers, kind of getting back to the land. There's a lot of new trends that help people live a better quality life.
And the thing is that whether you live in an urban environment, whether you live suburban environment or rural, I mean, there's all different ways that you can participate. And gardening isn't only about food.
Yeah.
Many ways to garden that, flowers and plants and all those kinds of things.
And for me,
not my expertise, FYI.
I've done a little bit of gardening, mostly, I hired somebody to come and design some garden space.
That's not doing your own gardening.
But I did the planting myself.
All right, you win.
And I really found that connection with the earth and smelling the earth, particularly after a rainstorm, it's just wonderful.
I'm going to take your word for it. Not my first choice in life, but I'm very anxious to learn all there is to learn. We could talk about.
You gotta get down. You gotta get dirty.
I'm open.
Feel that dirt in your under your nails.
Not me. Anyway, we're going to be right back with our guest today to talk about gardening. Stay with us. Welcome back to Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan. As we said, we're doing a show on gardening, and we have two wonderful guests who have joined us today. So let's introduce them. First, we have Bob Deeb, and you're a gardener, an avid gardener, I hear, for 25 years or so, and an inventor, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
And we also have with us Carol Surash, who is the Nursery Manager at Helderledge. So welcome to both of you. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Carol, do you mind if we start with you and just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into gardening, and we'll just start there.
Okay, absolutely. I can trace my gardening to my family. Both of my parents gardened. Very disparate gardening. My father did vegetable gardening and the lawn. My mother did all of the other gardens, which was quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
We had a large piece of property in Rochester, New York. Is where I mostly lived. So I dealt with plants my entire life. I've lived in the Capital District for over 30 years. I've lived for most of that time over in Rensselaer County on a large piece of land, so I've done much gardening there. And also I've worked at a nursery. I've had a relationship with them for probably 25 years.
Wow. And you have a biology background, is that
And
right?
I have a biology background.
So plants are you.
Plants are it.
Yeah.
That's great.
There is nothing else in life.
That's right. There you go. Bob, tell us about you and how you got into gardening and a little bit about your invention.
Sure. Well, I never thought I'd get into gardening. When I was younger, I'd see my older brother gardening and thought, that's not for me. But when I got married and started to have a family, I thought, a way to save money, I might as well get my hands dirty and do some gardening.
That's a good point.
And it was really rewarding because I came from a sales marketing background, and that can be grueling. So it was a way to get some release and just enjoy being out, as Susan had mentioned earlier, getting out and just enjoying the fresh air and the birds singing and everything. So that's how it started.
And decompress.
And decompress, yes.
I think a lot of people say that about gardening,
Yeah.
is that, you know, it's getting back to nature, and they do it because of the release and the, you know, just the peacefulness of it. Is that what your experience is too?
Yeah, I would say so. One of the things that I do, I'll take a few minutes just to be quiet and listen to birds sing, and it's so soothing to hear them sing.
Well, you
so.
live in a beautiful place where there's a lot of birds that sing.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
very lucky that way.
Yes, and by design, we wanted to live out in the country.
Yeah.
And we also live in Rensselaer County, my wife Joanne and my kids. So.
That's great.
Yes.
And so what keeps you gardening?
Well, necessity, fresh fruit and vegetables. It's important. My wife and I always enjoy having tomato. She makes a great tomato cucumber salad. The simple things, and we know it's fresh. I know there's no pesticides on them. I don't use any of that when I'm gardening. So it's knowing that you're getting fresh produce, and we miss it when the fall begins to come. So.
I imagine. But I imagine the nutritional value, you can't get much higher than that when you're going out into your own garden, picking it, and eating it.
There is a satisfaction to that.
It's real food. You know, it's real food without the junk. And it's simple and it tastes great. You can't beat it.
That's right.
I grew up with a garden. My mom, our family was, we had a huge garden, and we all gardened. Maybe that's why I don't like it now. But
You don't like the work, but you like the healthy food.
oh yes, I live within walking distance of a farm, and I buy farm fresh food. I visit farmers markets all year long.
So you do appreciate gardening.
Oh, appreciate it from afar.
So you don't actually have to get your hands dirty.
That's right. It's not necessary.
We can give you a pair of gloves. You won't get your hands
No,
dirty.
thanks.
I like getting my hands dirty.
Yeah.
For me, that's the part that I really like. I have, I've never grown fruits and vegetables. I have a small herb garden. But many years ago when I had first moved into my place, you know, I bought a track house. There was nothing, no trees, no bushes really to speak of. And a lot of weeds. So I had one piece that I had ideas what I wanted to put in there, bushes and other kinds of plants. But it was all covered with weeds. And it was just terrible. And I didn't know anything about how to pick it up. So I decided, okay, every morning for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to get up before work. I'm going to get up at like 6 o'clock. And I'm just going to do what I can do for 20 minutes. And so, you know, and I loved the routine. I loved the fresh morning air. I loved the getting my hands dirty. And that's how I started. It was very zen. That's how I started my morning that spring for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, my weeds were all gone, and I was ready to plant the rest of my garden. And it's filled with perennials and bushes, so every year I get to see it. And it's beautiful. It's great.
Is that more of what you do with flowers and other kinds of
Well,
plant life?
My nursery is a perennial plant nursery, but we have, we're very deep in perennials with both the standards, but then the rare and unusual.
So what are perennials
I was just gonna
for
say.
people who may not know?
Okay. Well, in our climate, this lavender would be a perennial. So right now, given that we're just coming out of winter, we're actually officially into spring right now. It's not going to be looking too good. It actually is somewhat of an evergreen in our climate, so it will have some presence above ground.
So it comes up year after year.
It comes up year after year. This plant would also be a perennial. It looks sort of like it's a mint. You wouldn't see anything at this point in our gardens outside.
Okay.
So that's what a perennial means. It comes up year after year. And
Right,
an annual
An
means
annual completes its life cycle in one season.
Got
A
it.
biennial is vegetative its first year. It flowers the second year. Something such as foxglove, I think of.
Yeah. So the perennials are pretty cheap and easy, right? You buy them once, you plant them, they keep coming up. As long as you don't spill poison on them or something, they're...
I'm probably not the best one to ask in terms of money expenditure towards plants, because I definitely have skewed feeling towards that. A large part of my budget goes to supporting plants. But yes, I would say it's a very economical way to enhance your property.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I can say as far as that's concerned, planting perennials and annuals, I've learned to plant more perennial flowers in the front of the house and put in different places some of the annuals. So it cuts down on your budget year after year.
Yeah.
Every year I plant more perennials.
And
Yeah.
it's less work because you don't have to keep
Absolutely.
planting every year.
Exactly.
But annuals are something like tulips or daffodils, something bulb-like, is that right? Or not necessarily?
No.
Okay, so I
No,
don't know.
bulbs come up year after year.
But I thought you had to take them out. And
No.
No, see,
No.
I don't know anything.
Though if you go to Washington Park, I do believe, I don't know how many thousands of tulips they put in every year, and they do lift them up. They plant them in the fall, they bloom, and they do lift them up later in the summer, and I believe sell them to make somewhat of a profit to go
Yeah.
back into planting replanting their bulbs. You don't have to do that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
However,
What would be an annual then?
well, impatiens, petunias, marigolds.
okay. Yeah, okay.
You know, basils. A lot of herbs are annuals. Tomatoes are annuals.
And what about somebody who lives in an urban setting? I mean, what kinds of things can they do to enhance their living space, but also to get the benefits of working in a garden or gardening?
I think a lot of people adapted the small pots. You can put tomato plants in a pot and grow it. You can start it early in house if you have light, help with the infrared or some type of lighting.
Ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I
That's
haven't
all right.
done the ultraviolet.
the other end of the spectrum?
Yes, the other end of it. So, with the ultraviolet light, it can help enhance that for people who have a very limited space. And they're also utilizing a lot of other ways of planting and having indoor gardening. So.
Well, I researched in preparation for the show, I researched some trends. And one of the trends, let me see here, is community gardens.
Yes.
And what they said about community gardens is that, let's say it is an urban setting, and I think Bette Midler down in New York City did a lot about 10 years ago with community gardens, where obviously a very urban setting down in the city, but she found vacant plots of land in various places scattered throughout the city, and built community gardens so that the people in the neighborhood share the responsibility for tilling the soil, putting in whatever fertilizers they're going to use, and they all benefit from the production. So they share the produce too. So that's like a way to do urban gardening. They're sharing a plot. And what they say is it's building relationships. It's not just about the produce, although that's delicious and wonderful and good for you. It's about mentoring and people coming together who probably wouldn't otherwise come together.
That is something huge in gardening. Anyone can garden, from a toddler on up to, a 100-year-old person. You have to obviously limit yourself to things that you can physically do, given your age span, but it brings together people from all walks of life, all interests.
It's intergenerational.
Yep.
And
Yes.
yeah.
I was at the Crossings recently, and it's a park in Colonie. If you haven't been there, it's right near the Beltran Center, which is a home for the elderly, and they have raised gardens.
That's
huge. Which I thought was such a brilliant idea,
Yeah.
and I would see women, mostly women out there, they didn't have to bend down, they didn't have to get on their knees, which is can be so uncomfortable, but these wonderful raised gardens that beautiful flowers, plants, tomato plants, all different kinds, cucumbers, all these different things.
I myself am going to be doing some raised gardens. They're quite raised. Let me just tell you a little bit. My land is bedrock from 0 to plus 30 feet, so extremely rocky. It's Rensselaer County, extremely bad soil, actually, in terms of very acidic. It doesn't have pollutants in it or anything, but very acidic. It's not what you think of as good Rensselaer farm country.
Right.
So I did read a book over the winter time, and there is a woman out in the western part of the state who is doing these raised gardens. So I'm going to be building a few of those, and I believe we're going to be building a few of them at Helderledge. The idea is that you don't have to combat, perhaps bedrock or weeds or whatever it is. You also can build them high, so if you are elderly, or even myself, I have back issues, you don't have to bend over to do these things. They also can be wheelchair accessible.
Oh, nice.
Oh, isn't
and
that
would that be
something?
also
That's
keep
great.
some of the like animals out of it? In some, I mean, I would imagine like squirrels and rabbits and
Yeah,
things.
Well, they'd have to put ladders up.
Well, deer could still get into it, not.
Deer are a problem.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where you are in Rensselaer County, but where I am in Rensselaer County,
yeah.
in the Capital District,
Yeah,
they are
I
a
had to put
problem.
a 6-foot fence around my garden
Wow.
to
Yeah.
prevent the deer.
Yeah.
from getting in.
Although one of the other trends that I researched was building gardens that invite other critters in, so that you're actually sharing the space. And I'm sure that everyone has heard of a butterfly garden.
Sure.
Planting plants that will specifically attract a butterfly.
Now that I would like.
Or specifically attract bees. I mean, you don't want
No.
to necessarily attract anything that's going to be destructive, although that does happen. But that's another trend, is to build garden that attracts other wildlife so that you can enjoy it and they can enjoy it.
Yeah, you don't have to attract the rodents; they just naturally come.
Well, they're hungry too.
Yeah.
Hey, the squirrels in my neighborhood really like my bird food. I mean, I put the bird food out to attract birds to my backyard. But the squirrels love it too.
Yes, they do.
No surprise there.
What other trends were there on your list of trends other than community gardens? Were there?
Well, yes. One of the trends that I thought was pretty interesting was sensory gardens. Planting a mix of flowers and landscape that is not just beautiful, but that also is fragrant and feels good to the touch, to invite in people, maybe children with disabilities, who are perhaps visually impaired, so that they can enjoy the garden too. They can enjoy the scent, they can enjoy the feel, maybe some lamb's ear, that fuzzy lamb's ear was a suggestion. And so there's kind of a movement towards that,
And
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and I like when you see a garden that has a mixture of like water and like maybe a waterfall or something like that.
Water treatments.
Yeah, that really add to the ambiance
Right.
of the.
Well, one of the trends is because of, we're not seeing as much rain because of the climate change. So particularly in the Southwest and even the Southeast last year is a tremendous drought. So there's now a big trend towards planting, rather than planting grass, which really takes a lot of water, instead planting other plants and flowers that maybe are particularly good at retaining their water, so that they're not real big consumers of water. So that's another big trend,
Now,
which is kind of interesting.
you guys both have children. Do you find that
Yes.
your children are into the gardening as well? Does it
Not
connect
my
you?
children.
Not yours.
They
They're
never-
related to me apparently.
When they were younger, they jumped right in. But as they got older, but I don't. That doesn't bother me, because I feel, just like I was not interested. It just takes. You can't force someone to do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they'll ease into it.
Oh,
I
you
know-
can. Believe
Yeah,
me,
it
ask
doesn't-
my parents.
I don't want to.
You want to eat?
Yeah.
You weed.
For the reason
It
is,
kind of ruined it for you. So I
Yeah.
think maybe Bob's approach
Sure.
is the smarter approach to that.
I feel they will, because I see a lot of the things that I've shared with my sons.
Yeah.
I see them doing them, the positive things that
Yeah.
they're doing. So.
Yeah.
How about you?
I feel the same way. I have 3 children. They all are, I would say, extremely knowledgeable because of their exposure to plants growing up. Given where they are in life now, they're not experiencing too much, although they do enjoy plants, they enjoy gardens. They speak garden, they speak Latin. They were taught at a very early age, what a rhododendron is. It is something that they're going to enjoy, I believe, more as they get older. I think you're going to get into gardening as you get older.
Well, the trend is, and some factoids here. I mean, there is definitely a trend towards gardening. Now, over a third of all families garden in this country,
That's a
which
lot
I
of
thought
people.
was astounding
Well, one of-
when I read it.
I think one of the reasons, there are many reasons why people are maybe a little more interested in gardening now, but it's one of the more affordable interests. As
Yeah.
opposed to taking pricey vacations elsewhere. You can spend a modicum of that money and, you know, put in your garden. And your garden can be, this could be your garden right here, you know, and you can enjoy that. Small containers. Fairy gardens, miniature gardens, those are really have been hot, and I expect them to remain so because anybody can do those. People living in townhouses, row houses.
Back to
I
the
guess.
urban dwelling
Sure,
issue.
Sure.
And it seems like, you know, this whole buy local movement that we're seeing, you know, which was once just sort of a tiny little idea, got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's also impacting, you know, people going to farmers markets and people being more interested in gardening.
Yeah, there's
and where their
definitely an
food comes
upsurge in
from.
farmers markets,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes.
I wonder if we could talk about what Bob has brought.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
We want to make
Okay.
sure we get that in.
Because he's also an inventor, a gardener and an inventor.
A new inventor. Well, yeah, I'd like to share some. This was actually, I call it my tomato snaps. It's a product I developed last summer when I was in my garden with frustrations on tying up my tomato plants. I thought there's got to be an easier way to do this. So what I did was I thought, you know, it just came to my mind as I'm saying, because I like to think of things. And I thought, why don't I take some fabric, attach some snaps to it, and then use that? It would be much easier than tying something and then trying to untie it at the end of the season.
So had you gone to stores and looked for a solution?
I did, and I've used tomato cages, and I don't like the tomato cage because what happens, they look beautiful when you first put it in, and you have that nice small tomato plant sitting there. But then as the plant grows up, it tends to push the cage out of the ground and flops over. So then you have to support the cage with something else. So, and I tried that solution 2 or 3 times, and after I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. So I thought there's got to be something simple. I went online to look for something, and everything I found that was patent or patent pending was very complicated, and you need to be a rocket scientist to really know how to put
I'm
the
so
contraption.
happy to hear you say that. I am mechanically challenged, and I fully understand
Yeah.
your assessment of that.
Yeah.
It's true.
So I tried these out. It's a very simple product. It's a 15-inch long webbing made of polypropylene, and they have snaps on it. And the snaps themselves are a nickel alloy, so they don't rust in the garden. And basically, you take one end, you snap it around the tomato stake or fence, and then the other end, you snap it around a branch or the stem of whatever plant. It can be a flower plant. And back here is what I have. If you look here, there's a snap attached to this
Oh, I
fake
see.
flower. And
So it doesn't bend over.
it doesn't bend over. It
And
gives
it
it the
doesn't hurt
support.
the stalk.
Correct.
And as it grows, you can adjust it.
You can adjust it. You can take this and move it. The other thing I developed with where I had the snaps, now you can use it to shorten it up. And you can put this end of it around the tomato stalk or whatever plant, and then this end around if it's a larger stake or fence post or something, so it gives you room to maneuver. And also if you needed to add an additional one, you can snap another one on here to make it bigger.
Oh,
so there's a few
wow.
ways of doing it, or you can just snap it this way and use it. And at the end of the season, just unsnap it, put it away in whatever container you have, and
Where you can find it the next year.
for next year, that's correct.
And where do
That's
people
great.
get these if they want to?
It's a brand new product. I debuted with it at the garden flower show, the Hudson Valley, which was a huge success. It was a lot of fun. I spent 3 days there. Everyone walked by that looked at it said, tomato snaps. Wrap it and snap it. And you can see them mouthing that. So it was really interesting. Even Congressman Paul Tonko came by and he bought one. So it was
wow.
nice, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really, it's been a lot of fun.
You know, it's like one of those things where you think, why didn't
Why didn't I
somebody?
think-
No, not only why didn't I think of it, but why didn't it's simple, but it's brilliant in a
It's
way.
practical.
You know?
I wanted something that I enjoyed to use. I used it in my garden all last summer, so it was like, okay, I like this. It's simple, it's quick, and so I thought, let's see if we can market this. Another thing that I really like and I'm proud of doing is it's made in America. The fabric and the snaps are made in this country. I don't want it to go overseas. I want it to stay here.
And so do you have a website where people can?
I do, www.tomatosnaps.com. It's a very simple website right now, but if anyone wants to reach me, they can. They can leave a note, questions about it, sure.
Okay, great.
That's great. And here's another interesting factoid. then I got off of a website called cheapvegetablegardener.com. The most popular vegetables grown in U.S. gardens are by far tomatoes. 86% of anybody who has a garden is growing tomatoes.
Wow.
So
What's second?
the second is cucumbers, and that's 47%. So that's, I mean, tomatoes has a lead by a far, and lettuce,
I would have guessed lettuce.
which I would love to grow lettuce. That's kind of what I want to do. It's only 28%. I don't know why, but I thought that was
Because
pretty
rabbits eat
interesting.
the lettuce, that's why.
I've
Yeah.
always been, I've always grown tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, yellow squash. Those have been the staples, and peppers. They seem to do well in my soil.
Yeah.
In
And
this
we
account.
talked earlier about, is this worth it? Monetarily, is it worth it? And the statistics show that is a really good return on investment. So for a $70 investment, it's going to yield you $530 worth of produce.
And some people
I thought
even
was great.
sell the excess, right? I mean, like if you get a whole bunch of zucchinis or a whole bunch of tomatoes, I noticed that some of my neighbors, for example, put out the tomatoes for purchase, and it's a little bit extra
Like a little
money.
honor bar.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a
And
little
why not? If you can, make a little extra money at the same time, put it towards your seed for next year.
And it's
right?
good, healthy food. It's wonderful. I used to work with a fellow who grew zucchini, and he was always complaining that he had all of this extra zucchini. So I said, "Give some to me. I've got this great pickling recipe." And I said, "I will pickle it, and you can keep half of the pickled zucchini." And it was to die for. And good for you. Healthy, good for you.
Well, I'm a vegan, right? So I don't eat anything but vegetables and fruit.
Yes.
So sometimes if you can't grow such vegetables like you can, which I can't, I try to buy locally. Perhaps I find a farmer or a neighbor, whomever, who has excess. But I also do usually join a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture,
Yeah.
and they're all set up very differently. I've never been dissatisfied. I've tried 3 different ones so far, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we are just about out of time. So if people are interested in more about community service supported agriculture, Google it. And both of your information will be also on the credits. So we thank you for being with us, and we thank you for watching.